idea.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Svelte Radio. Yay! Woo! It's almost Svelte Summit time. But before we get into the episode, maybe a short status update. What have you guys been up to? Shawn, Antony.
Yeah. For me, we are working on shipping our TypeScript SDK at work. It will be the best long-running work job library in JavaScript, by our opinion. And also, we're working on a Svelte app for our UI. So that's what's going on.
Nice. So Beyond got funded. So basically, it means I can hire people. Hired a bunch of people, a lot from the Svelte community, which has been awesome. And now we're just working on converting everything to Svelte Kit, which is, of course, awesome.
Nice. All right. Yeah, so I've been mostly working on Svelte Summit. It's just 2 weeks away. Yeah, 2 weeks away. And yeah, that's it. Got my appendix removed. It's exciting.
Cool.
And anyway, let's move on. So we have a guest today. It's none other than Rich Harris. Welcome. Hey. So what's up?
Well, I too have a status update. I am currently between jobs. I'm fun employed.
Oh no! Do you need work? Do you need us to put out a call for you?
I have spent the week doing all of the personal admin that gets overlooked when you're working a 40-hour plus week. Like I went and got a filling the other day.
Wow.
Not quite as dramatic as having my appendix removed, but it was still a first. Very exciting.
Still a procedure.
I've been cleaning the flat, which is always very cathartic. Actually, we hired a cleaner for the first time a while back on the recommendation of a friend, because that's what childless 30-something couples do in New York. It turns out. And she came around and did a fantastic job. The flat was absolutely spotless. But then ever since then, we're like, we may as well just wait for the cleaner to come back. And so we've gone completely feral. Yeah. And so the flat is far, far dirtier than at any point before we had a cleaner. And so I spent a large part of my week off trying to rectify that. Bought some new shoes.
Yeah. We used to hire we used to hire a cleaner as well. And then the new Mac came out and my wife wanted it. So she fired the cleaner and bought the Mac. And now the house is dirty, but she's got a shiny Mac.
Nice.
It's just like upsetting the equilibrium.
It really does.
All right. So I guess that's exciting. So
wait, I want to hear about the shoes. There was some shoes mentioned quickly.
All right.
Oh yeah, it's just another one of these things that I hadn't got around to doing because I've been too busy. My shoes had giant holes in them, and now they don't. It's great.
That sounds like my girlfriend. She really uses her shoes until they're like completely destroyed. This is very economical.
It's the glamorous life of OSS maintenance, right?
Yeah.
This is what this is.
All right. So you're leaving the New York Times then, right? For how long have you been there?
I joined the Times in May 2017. So I was there for about 4.5 years. Plus or minus, which is actually the longest I've ever been in one place throughout my career. Not that it feels like it. I feel like time accelerates as you get older, and so the last 4.5 years have absolutely zipped by. But it came to an end last week. Although, like technically, I didn't end until yesterday, but I took my last week as vacation. And then I started a new thing on Monday.
Do they have any rituals when you leave?
Yeah, there's the ritual leaving roast, which happens because of the pandemic. Obviously, like we don't do these things in the office anymore, but we had a really nice little leaving do in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and the members of the department that are based in New York came down, and we had some pizza and some beers and shared some jokes. A tradition in newsrooms is when someone's leaving, they get a mock front page with stories about them, like sort of roasting them. In my case, they didn't do a front page; they did a mock coronavirus tracker, and it was so beautifully done.
So what's on it?
It's just like just taking the piss out of me for 2 A3 pages, and then had a little virtual leaving do on my last day in the office, in the quote unquote office, and then that was it.
Yep.
Is this mock coronavirus tracker? Are you going to make it public, or is it just what stays in Vegas kind of thing?
What was that? Sorry.
Well, is it going to be a public thing at some point, or are you just going to keep it? It's all secret. What stays in Vegas?
It's all department in jokes and stuff.
Shame.
Cool. So
that's good.
You've been there for a while, right? So any kind of particular stories that you've worked on that stand out through the years?
There's a few. So I joined the investigations team initially, and I was with that team for probably about 3 years. And so most of the time that I was there, I was working on these big investigative pieces. And when you're working in that kind of environment, you publish like 1 or 2 things a year. So whereas many of my colleagues are publishing things like every other week, I only actually have a fairly small number of bylines to my name. But some of those investigative pieces stick out. I think the first really big piece that we did was called The Follower Factory. And it was a piece about how celebrities and politicians and people like that were buying fake Twitter followers. And we did we spent a lot of time abusing the Twitter API to get as much data as we could to show that you can find these fake accounts using sort of quasi-statistical methods. And as a result, Twitter took millions of bots off its accounts. They were sort of shamed into doing it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I did some graphics for some pieces that my coworkers did. There was one about the surveillance economy of how companies will use the free apps on your phone. Like you'll install a weather app and it needs to have access to your location. And then it just sells your location to whoever wants to buy it. And there are these companies that have these incredibly detailed maps of where you've been. And in theory, it's all anonymized, but we were able to show that you can de-anonymize people really easily. And we produced this map of New York City that was entirely composed of the dots of GPS traces from people's phones. And it's incredible the amount of detail that you can see when you have this data. You can see the traffic getting backed up going in and out of the Lincoln Tunnel. You can see the footpaths going through the park that are less used, and all of this stuff. And it was kind of scary just seeing it visualized like that. The amount that these companies know about all of this is horrifying.
It's kind of like when you go into I don't know if you guys been into the Google dashboard and you take a look at your location history. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm imagining it looking like.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if I was the only person who had access to that data, but it's just not the case. And it is a little creepy. Of course, for the last 18 months, my work has mostly been focused on the coronavirus tracker that the Times put out. And that's been a large part of my life. Although I think the most fun project that I've done during my tenure at the Times was our Olympics coverage. We produced these little videos of little blue Lego people swimming and running. Because we weren't allowed to use the footage from the games themselves because NBC have a lock on the broadcast rights.
Right.
And so we did these sort of cute little data visualizations. And that's
a nice work.
It was an incredibly fun project to work on. And it was a SvelteKit app as well. It was another opportunity to use SvelteKit at work, which is always good dog fooding.
I know that someone mentioned, I can't remember, it was on Discord or something. Since you're leaving the New York Times, do you think that the New York Times will continue to use Svelte, or will your colleagues sort of resent you and go, yeah, we're going to use Next or something? I don't know.
I mean, so that's the kind of in-joke that was on that that leaving roast is everyone's going to start using React now. I'm pretty confident that that it's kind of bedded in at this point. So the graphics publishing workflow is being overhauled at the moment, and as part of that, there's a new, we call it the interactive server, that's being written in SvelteKit. The new election app is, I understand it, going to be written in SvelteKit, or at least the election pages themselves are going to be written in Svelte. And it's got a pretty good toehold in the department as a whole now. At first, it was like, it's very difficult to convince journalists to learn new technical skills. I found, because like most people working in that environment aren't doing so because they really love JavaScript, right? They're doing so because JavaScript is a tool that allows you to do different forms of journalism. And learning how to configure Webpack and all of that stuff, it's the last thing on anyone's priority list. And so when I came along into the department and started building everything with Svelte, people just looked at me like a weirdo. But then gradually, as I would work on projects with other people and they could see the benefit of building user interfaces declaratively, rather than doing things with jQuery and Lodash templates and whatever. Gradually people sort of got on the Svelte train, and now a lot of people have sort of said, I refuse to build things any other way than with Svelte. And so even though it's not wow, we don't have standards, I keep saying we, and I shouldn't say they, which is very sad. The department doesn't have standards. There's no mandates about what technology you use when you're building stuff. And so people are absolutely free to do whatever they want. It's become a little bit of a standard for some people in the department. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to continue being used. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. So are you staying in New York? Or are you
I am
going to move somewhere?
Yeah, no, I really like it here. The job that I'm going to is remote first. So I'm just going to be a work from home person permanently.
Nice.
And that's where you discover whether you are a work from home person.
No, that's pretty established at this point, because when we all got sent home at the beginning of March last year, I was a little worried. For 2 weeks is great. This is kind of like a quasi holiday sort of thing. 2 weeks is going to be great. But then when it dawned on us that it's not going to be 2 weeks, that this is our lives now, at first I was very trepidatious about the whole thing. I thought that, everyone's going to turn into a recluse. We're going to forget how to converse and whatever. And in actual fact, I've discovered that I really like working from home. I am very worried about what working from home being the norm means for society at large. I think that it's a fraying of the social fabric that is going to have deep and long-lasting consequences. But for me personally, at my stage in life, I bloody love it. I love being able to roll out of bed 5 minutes before I'm supposed to clock on and have a productive day's work, feed myself well, get time for a workout, do some chores, take the laundry out, whatever, and then I still don't have to commute home in the evening. For me, it's just a dramatically better quality of life.
I agree 100%. And I think for most people, it kind of is the same. But my concern is for the younger people who have never worked in an office and go into an environment where people don't work in offices. You do lose a lot of the social side of things. You say that, you were worried about people losing their social skills and stuff. I definitely did to an extent, and I've been very social before. I'm a nightmare in offices. I just talk a lot and distract people, imagine. Right? And working at home probably was a massive relief for everybody. But the thing is, what's happened is that when I go out now, I've forgotten how to drink for one, so I just get drunk really quickly. I've also forgotten how to talk to people about reasonable things that they're interested in, and they're looking at me like some kind of alien. It's actually a really weird thing. So I think I kind of share your fear a little bit just from experience, from personal experience.
Yeah, I kind of want something like a hybrid thing. That would probably be the best for me.
A choice,
1 or 2 days at the office, and then
it's difficult though, because
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because you have to have allocated seating. You have to have property and rent to pay and stuff on an office. So definitely, I guess it's something we've got to yet develop.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions for Rich before we move on?
I have one more New York Times question, which is that there seems to be phases in terms of the New York Times JavaScript output. So there was the Mike Bostock phase, and then there was the Rich Harris phase. Who's the next JavaScript up-and-comer that we should be watching out for?
Oh, man. I'm not going to name any individuals in case people there's
Massive pressure.
I mean, all I'll say is that the department has like an incredible bench. Like there's so much depth of talent on that team. And there's always new people coming into the Times, and there's people like coming from other areas of the Times and getting more involved in graphics. Like the amount of programming skill that department has access to is really humbling. So I don't know, but I'm excited to find out like what the next few years bring.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to trap you into like naming one person. I think it's fascinating how much technology comes out of the New York Times.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because everything is a little bit kind of freeform in a newsroom. Like everything is very, very based on pragmatics. If something isn't practical, then no one's interested. So there's like very little sort of ivory tower stuff that happens in an environment like that, and there's also no sort of structure determining like who gets to work on open source stuff or anything like that. So, I've said it for a long time, and I will continue saying it. A newsroom is, I think, one of the best places that you can hope to be a developer. Like the opportunities that you'll get to do interesting work are pretty unrivaled.
Awesome.
All right. So
why'd you leave?
Exactly. What's next? Tell us.
When is this going out? This episode?
So I'll send it in for editing probably later today, and then we'll probably be out on, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday.
And who are the editors? We need to name the editors in case there's a leak and then we know.
Okay.
Well, so by the time this episode goes live, I will have been working at Vercel for the previous few days.
Woo!
I am joining Vercel as of Monday, and I'm joining to work on Svelte full time.
Amazing.
That is exciting. So what does that actually mean?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I've had some really good conversations with Guillermo, the CEO of the company, and also Lindsay, who's the VP of engineering, about like what things are going to look like. But I really don't think you can tell what things are actually going to work like until you get your feet under the desk. So I'm really excited about Monday. I'm excited about seeing how the company works together. I'm excited about like seeing what it's going to mean to have a full-time person working on Svelte. I think it's a great situation.
The context of Vercel, obviously, the interesting context here, because not everybody knows Vercel or who they are, is that they created and own Next.js, which would be probably the biggest direct competitor to SvelteKit. Nuxt as well, but probably just the biggest.
I mean, I don't know that I would call them competitors necessarily, just because of the vast disparity in user base. Like Next is the 800-pound gorilla. It is completely dominating in terms of usage. Like I feel like most people, if you're building a React application, especially if you're starting a new React application, you're probably going to reach for Next because it has become this sort of de facto standard. It is the way that you build React apps. And React is obviously so much bigger than Svelte that it would feel absurd for me to say that SvelteKit is a competitor to Next. I would use a word like alternative or
alternative. Well, yeah, I suppose by competitor, alternative is what I mean. It's not like there's no money involved there's money involved in Next, but not so much in SvelteKit. Right. So it's more like if you're building a web app, you choose one of three main things, I guess, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is honestly part of the appeal of being able to work at Vercel is like having access to the next team, because the work that they've been able to do and like the muscle that they're putting behind things like SWC and all of this other stuff. Next.js Live is this incredible piece of work. Like being in the room, albeit virtually, where those ideas are being thrashed out, I think is also going to be hugely beneficial to Svelte, because, you know, a lot of those ideas we're probably going to want to steal. I mean, the idea for SvelteKit itself is, let's be honest, very largely stolen from Next. Next wasn't the first framework to have the idea of file system based routing for a React app, but it was, I think, the first successful implementation of that idea. And Sapper, SvelteKit's predecessor, was very explicitly inspired by Next. And SvelteKit was, you know, part of the reason that we kind of mothballed Sapper and worked on SvelteKit instead is because Next had shown the value of having this kind of hybrid capability where some parts of your app are static and some parts are dynamic, and having this sort of serverless first approach is something that we weren't able to put into Sapper. So, you know, at multiple points in Svelte development, we've been directly inspired by Next. And I think this is kind of a fitting evolution of that.
Sounds very nice.
Cool.
I would say also one of the founding philosophies of Next.js, and also actually React itself, is that there are some DX niceties from PHP that we wanted to bring back. And so obviously like the file-based routing was directly inspired. And actually, arguably, Svelte is closer to that PHP sort of enhanced HTML to get what you want ideal than Next.js is. I would be interested to see you explore that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about the direction that SvelteKit is going in at the moment. Like, I know that we've been sort of promising 1.0 just around the corner for a long time, but it really is shaping up into something that I personally find to be a delight to use. I feel very productive when I'm using SvelteKit. And I think it's going to be like a really sort of intuitive way for people to build apps. And yeah, I think that taking things back to those basics is always a good way to think about design questions.
Yeah. So what will this mean for Svelte as a project? Like, are you shuffling things around in the org, or?
No, I mean, so the organization remains as it is. Svelte will continue to be a fully independent project, like completely open source. It's not going to be like Svelte by Vercel or anything like that. The way that I think about it is, you know, Vercel, because they have customers who use Svelte, because you know, it's in there. They talk about being the SDK for the web, and like that means not being fully React centric. You know, they see it as being in their interests, and I don't want to put words into Guillermo's mouth or anything like that, because I'll probably get things wrong. But essentially, the way that I see it is, it's in Vercel's interests for Svelte to be as good as possible, and they are essentially sponsoring Svelte's development by paying me to work on it. So that's how I'm thinking about this. They're not taking ownership of the project or anything like that. They're just putting real resources behind it, which to me feels like a really good model for funding open source generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we still have this very robust and opinionated core team who work in all different environments. We've got, you know, the sort of Beyonc style startups represented. We've got Cloudflare represented because Luke Edwards is there. We've got people from so many different backgrounds and environments that the sort of independent spirit of Svelte, I think, is pretty well entrenched at this point.
Nice. That's good to hear. So your first week, what will it look like? I guess you don't know.
I have no idea. I have an invitation to an onboarding session. I have an invitation to an onboarding session Eastern time. So I'm wondering if like my day is going to be sort of oriented around Pacific time, which will be great for me because I'm always slow to get started in the mornings. But beyond having that first onboarding session, I have absolutely no idea. We talked a little bit with my new boss about like some ongoing projects at Vercel that would be like beneficial from an onboarding perspective for me to have some involvement in. But ask me that question in a month and we'll see how things are shaken out.
I will say, so I worked for
Netlify
out of New York. So I had the East Coast working for West Coast thing, and it's amazing. You come in so prepared to every meeting because you had like 2-3 hours heads up before that.
Yeah. But then you're working 3 hours later than everyone else as well.
Well, you don't have to have meetings that late.
That's true. So if you don't know what you're going to work on, so like, what are some things in Kit or Svelte that you want to like work on? Anything that stands out that needs some?
Anything that stands out. I mean, it's no secret that I've been a little bit detached from the day-to-day maintenance of both Svelte and Kit lately. So as a starting point, I need to look through the existing open pull requests on Kit and like just go through those and address some of those. I think the highest priority is getting Svelte Kit to a stable 1.0. And we don't want to set a date on that. It's not going to be ready for Svelte Summit. I can say that much.
Yep.
But I would like to devote the bulk of my time towards getting that done. Other things that I'm quite keen on spending some time on, I would like to get Svelte 3, which is not like Svelte version 3, but Svelte-3, which is a component library that wraps 3JS. It allows you to build 3D scene graphs declaratively. Built that for that Olympics project that I was referring to before. And it's kind of like Svelte's answer to React 3 Fiber. And I would love to get some documentation and examples built for that so that people can actually start using it for real. And then I guess once those things are done, it's time to start thinking about the future of Svelte itself. We have a little roadmap of things that we're sort of thinking about for Svelte 4, but there's a lot of open PRs and issues on that repo that could use some love before we start getting too grandiose in our ambitions. But we do have a lot of ambitions.
That's good. Because there are, I'm sure there are like a couple of RFCs that are merged that need some like some features that aren't there yet that are coming.
I think also Ben takes on a lot of the kind of Ben McCandless takes on a lot of the day-to-day reviewing and merging and stuff himself, and he's saying that as it grows in popularity, it's almost like whack-a-mole. The new issues, the new PRs start coming up quicker than he can actually close them and merge them, which is so it's good to have multiple people on that. I think
good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
but
Ben
is an absolute hero, but he's also like he has as a young child, and also has his own life and his own job, and so can't devote like full-time hours to squashing these PRs.
Yeah, like anybody.
Yeah, exactly. And so what my hope is that we're going to be able to trend like at the moment, like PRs and issues are being opened faster than we can close them, essentially. And my hope is very much that by me being there full time, we're going to be able to reverse that. And I'm not expecting that we're going to be able to like blitz through them immediately, but just as long as the trend is going in the right direction, then as a team, I think we will feel less on the back foot, less overwhelmed by our inability to service the issues that are coming into the repo. We're also switching to using GitHub discussions, which I think is probably going to help us be a little bit more organized.
Yeah, that's definitely that's like a controversial opinion. We had a lot of sort of discussions about that previously, and it's interesting that we've now gone towards it.
Yeah, I think that's gonna like help on the Discord as well. People asking questions, hopefully. We'll see.
I guess one of the hardest problems right now is like determining what makes it into 1.0, what becomes 1.0, and that's the thing that's quite hard to solve, I think.
Speaking of 1.0, we talked a bit about it. It's what's needed for it to actually get to 1.0.
I'm opening the repo now, so I can look at the PRs tab.
You're going to get a list of bugs
the
now.
cheat sheet?
list of issues.
Yeah, so we have...
Because it's almost like a moving target.
Yeah.
We have 24 open PRs, and some of these I have absolutely no context for what they are. Like register custom service worker for AMP. That's very interesting. I didn't know that that was a thing. There's some preliminary internationalization work. There's some like chore type stuff, like improving our test suite, making it less flaky. So I think those will be easy merges. The stuff that's always hard to merge is anytime you have things that change the API in some way. It's often very difficult as a contributor to make API changes that will end up getting merged, because there's often some reason that things are the way they are, and things like a reason that things aren't the way they're not. And those reasons aren't always articulated or expressed very clearly because they're sort of in the maintainers' heads. And so those are always the hardest PRs, because they sort of force you to articulate those previously unarticulated things. And that involves having sometimes a fairly lengthy discussion about pros and cons. And it's one of those things where like it's really important to be diplomatic, because the rationale for the PR is always good. It's always, here's a thing, like a problem that could be fixed in this way. And you have to sort of come back and say, yes, but actually we should do it this other way. And that means that your problem isn't going to get solved for another few weeks. And that's always tough. An example at the moment that we're having is around server-side rendering. Because if you import something into your component that will not work in a node environment or a serverless environment, then your app will just crash. Because even though you've said this page doesn't need to be server-side rendered, in order to determine that, SvelteKit currently has to import that page, the component for that page, inspect it and say, oh, we're not going to bother server-side rendering it. But by that point, you've already imported the broken module, and so the app crashes. And so like one way to do that is to have an option that just disables server-side rendering across the entire application. And we think that has too many negative consequences, because server-side rendering is something that should in general be enabled for most of your application, we think. And so like we need to have a debate about an API that will allow you to disable server-side rendering truly and not like have that problem with things being loaded that shouldn't be, but that gives you that sort of granularity. And it's tough. There's always so many trade-offs involved in these things. And those are the things that sort of stretch out the time before you can cut a stable release. Is like you actually need to build consensus around these things. If we weren't interested in having consensus and having people understand the decisions that we're making and agree with the decisions that we're making, then it would probably be fairly easy. We could just like riffle through the PRs, close the things that we think are bugs very quickly, and just declare it done. But that's not really how we like to operate. So that's why it's taking long, is that we have this sort of organic, community-centric approach to building the framework. And it takes time.
I think it's also like, it's getting things right, because another example is the error boundaries. So there's already a working component. It's kind of community driven. We have a discussion. We have an RFC open about how it should work, but there's no consensus on how that API should look. We could just go with what's there now and see how it goes, and then do another one later. But that one of the reasons that, for instance, I like Svelte so much is because you do things kind of one way, and that way is the way that works and is correct and it's future proof. And a lot of other libraries have gone in a different direction to that, and they have different ways of doing the same thing. And whilst that's fine, and maybe they deliver these things quicker, it adds confusion for new users, and people can join a team using this framework or that framework and not know the way that they as a team use that framework. It's different to how they've used it in the past. Either it's an older way or a new way or something like that. So I think it really pays off in the longer run, even though it may look like we're delaying and sort of bike shedding in the short term, that these decisions are made correctly and the API is solidified in the best possible way, given restraints at the time.
People dramatically underestimate the difficulty of changing API once it's shipped, and overestimate the difficulty of changing implementation details. And it's better to get the right API and the wrong implementation than the other way around.
Makes sense. All right. Any other questions before we move on to Svelte Summit?
No, congrats.
No? All right. Yeah. Congratulations on the job.
Great for Svelte. Really exciting.
Yep. Extremely. So Svelte Summit is 2 weeks away. And that's exciting. We have close to 50 talks. Wow, that's a lot. But we're not going to show all of them at the event, unfortunately. There's not enough time. We don't want a 24-hour event. Well, actually, that could be kind of fun at some point. So we're gonna host like a couple of mini events every week after. So on Wednesdays is the plan for now, and I'm gonna host where I'll probably show like 5 or 6 talks each week that didn't get into the main event, kind of, if that makes sense. So that's exciting. We have music by a guy called Fractal. He also did the music to Svelte Radio. That's cool. And yeah, there's a lot of interest in Svelte Summit this time around. I've noticed, like, compared to last time, it's just nuts. Svelte must have grown so much since since April, which is super exciting. I guess we can talk a bit about the watch parties, right? You booked something?
Yeah, I went ahead and booked. We really wanted to book 61 Local, which is the bar that Svelte was launched, but they're still not open for some weird reason. And so we're booking something next door. I haven't been to this place, but I sent them a lot of money, so we'll hopefully have a nice time. Yeah. So if you're in New York or the U.S. East Coast, you're totally welcome to sign up. We'll probably put something in the show description, or you could just hit me up. And yeah, Rich will be there. I think Guillermo's coming together with some Vercel people, and it will just be a Svelte party. I think the idea is basically that I wanted to ease us back into some kind of in-person thing. Eventually, we want to have an in-person Svelte Summit, maybe Sweden, maybe Singapore, I don't know, because they start with S.
Yeah,
very important. But I thought New York would be the easiest to start with, and like a small event.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's a nice venue, and it's a great neighborhood, and people should come and hang out. It's in like the middle of the day, right? It's like 12 till 4, I think.
12 because we have to sync with the rest of the world if we want to make this work.
Exactly.
So yeah, Kev, I think it's, what time is it your time? 4 or 5 GMT, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something like that. I'll have to check. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the event goes until like 9 or 10 or 11. I don't quite remember. I should know this. It's
well, we said away. We said 4 hours, and we'll just pick some talks that kind of fit in that time frame. But yeah, one of the things that we really wanted to do was we hated getting people to apply for Svelte Summit and then having to reject them, and actually not knowing. It's kind of like a weird. This traditional cutoff point is arbitrary because it dates back to when we had in-person conferences. And when we have online conferences, the shelf is infinite. And actually, we should think about moving back the cutoff point further into like, let's have people submit videos, and if it's good, if it's worth featuring within that 4-hour period, then let's do that. But then also, we don't want to, we want to recognize the other talks as well. So we have a YouTube, and we have so many people interested in talking about Svelte. We should feature them.
Yeah, that was a good idea. For sure. Yeah, I guess that's it about Svelte Summit in 2 weeks.
Well, so there's also Germany party. I bet there's going to be others because people are going to want to get together. I just think it's a really nice thing to get together in person and talk Svelte, build relationships that are based on Svelte, but then also you can talk about other stuff. And I think that's just really the fun part about community for me, which is always like my goal with like starting Svelte events and stuff like that. I think Rich also agrees, like there's just something to get about getting in person that you don't get online.
So the German watch party, I'm not entirely sure about the status there, but I think Dominic is kind of sort of organizing that or helping out at least. So if you're in Germany, you should probably reach out to him or join the German Svelte Society Discord. If you haven't already.
There's a German Discord. Yeah, but I mean, just generally, if you're organizing one, just get in touch with us. Let us know so we can get people to you.
Exactly.
I think something that we serve as Svelte Society is that we're a central point that people can find each other.
All right. So next year, I'm sort of thinking about maybe trying to get an in-person event going. I'm probably going to call it Svelte Summit Summer Edition, something. And in my head, I'm kind of imagining like a retro 80s vibe thing, which would be pretty cool. So I'm currently looking at venues over here in Stockholm, which is probably the easiest for me as an organizer to sort out, rather than having to like travel around the world and checking out places all over. But nothing is set in stone, so we'll see. Probably in August, and more info after the fall event, of course.
Wow, this is real now.
It is, yeah. I can't wait for like a real, like proper in-person Svelte Summit. It's I've been longing for one for like over a year. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right. Anything else?
I think it's an open secret. There's just a documentary going on.
Yeah. Should we talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
Or should we edit this out?
I mean, it's in the. I think you let the cat out of the bag, Shawn, when you included it in the invite to the watch party.
I had to warn people because we were planning.
I had to do because yeah. So I mean, I don't know for certain that the crew is going to be there for the watch party. Maybe you do. Maybe you've had a conversation with them about that. But
yes, they are.
Oh, okay. They are going to be there. Yeah. So the same people that, not the same company, but the people who work for the company that made the documentaries about Ember and Vue and GraphQL and various other things, they're now making a documentary about Svelte. Apparently, it was highly requested, and so I believe they've already interviewed a bunch of people. I think they interviewed you, Antony.
Yeah,
they did.
They've
done a few. Yeah, a few countries have done in Europe. I think.
They're based in Europe, so yeah, they're just doing the New York ones later.
Yeah, there was some visa thing they couldn't get in to the US before now, and I think
they had a lot of trouble getting to London, in fact, as well. I think everything's been just fraught with visas and problems like that.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I'm
a lot of effort's gone in.
I'm getting a tiny bit of an insight into the logistics involved in producing a documentary, and I mean, I thought conferences seemed hard, but this seems wild.
Same.
So anyway, I believe
you wouldn't choose to do it.
That they're coming out here next weekend to shove a camera in my face, which I'm absolutely dreading. But I can't exactly not be in the Svelte documentary. So there we go.
What do you mean?
It could be the unauthorized Svelte documentary. Like, this did not have the participation of Svelte creators.
There's a lot of setup for cameras and stuff, and it's really fascinating to watch.
It is, yeah.
All the lighting concerns and everything else like that. Because it shows, if you watch these documentaries, apparently the budget's even better this time around.
Yeah, they got funding.
If you watch the previous documentaries that they've produced, it's crazy the amount of effort they put into making that picture look good and stuff. You know, there's only so much they can do about me, but whatever. The point is, the environment looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, did 4 hours of makeup. Just eyeshadow. No, I'm joking. They didn't.
Yeah, I didn't do any makeup. Am I just naturally?
I just woke up like this.
I think that's what it is. No, they didn't do makeup. They drew the line at makeup. What we did do was spend ages adjusting my hue lights in here to be the right level of white, which I think is great.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, it's that important to be the right shade of white, the right temperature.
That's impressive.
It was a lot of fun, I thought, at least.
Wow.
Very,
it was.
very weird in a way.
Yes. Intimidating in a way, but also, I mean, I suppose it's, everything is really like that.
It's just a life experience. I'm looking forward to it. I've never had this level of professionalism in sort of videography, so I'm curious to see what they do with us.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to unpopular opinions?
All right.
Let's.
Antony always has one. So
Anthony just calls them opinions.
It's true. It's true.
They're unpopular by default.
They're just opinion. Yeah, every opinion is unpopular. So my unpopular opinion this week is that docs, which is like the Mac OS X dock and the Ubuntu dock and every other dock ever, even the start menu thing that Windows has, I don't understand why they exist. I think on Mac it's called Spotlight, but for me it's like the Windows and space key, and it brings up like an overview. You can type programs in, you run them. That for me is how you run programs. You switch with Alt-Tab, or you just hit, again, the Windows key, whatever, the meta key on the keyboard, and it brings up an overview of all the windows and you choose one. So what's the dock for, apart from like losing half of your really expensive Retina monitor? I can't see the purpose of that being there. It gets in the way. It takes up space. I never got it, and I was actually I'm a massive fan of GNOME 3. I've used it for a long time, and I like it because it's minimalist. There's nothing taking up space on the screen. It's just one little tiny bar at the top with a time on it. And for some reason, Ubuntu decided to put the dock in there, and all it is a hindrance. And I have to run a program every time I install Ubuntu to remove it again, because I never ever touch it. It's just taking up my expensive monitor space. So my opinion is, why on earth do people have docks? What do people use them for?
I would agree with that.
I kind of like the dock, but more as like a visual thing. So, it looks nice.
Yeah, right. So get a sticker and stick on your laptop.
Well, you can kind of see like which programs are active, I guess. I don't know.
Why is that important?
I don't know.
I can see everyone thinking like, what do I use a dock for?
I use it for minimized applications. Like if I have a bunch of Chrome windows and I want to minimize one of them, like keep it out of the way if I'm doing a screen recording or something, I put it there. Also, I have no idea how to access my trash folder other than via the dock. But everything else, I totally agree. Get rid of it.
Oh, really?
I'm sure it's possible. I just can't be bothered to.
Wait, so yeah. Well, I mean, so trash is like on mine. It's just like a folder in the file system, and you can just empty it. But minimize windows. If I hit the meta key, all my minimize windows also show in that overview. And if I hit it again, they'll disappear, and they're still minimized. But they're not on my screen at some point, taking up space when I'm using my machine in full screen, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe it's different on Mac.
I
I don't know how
agree with
many
you,
while.
which makes me think that this opinion is not unpopular.
Not unpopular.
Just an opinion.
It's unpopular enough that Mac have one, like, and Ubuntu insisted on having one, and I don't know why. And the new Windows 11 apparently is just like Mac OS. It's got a dock in the middle rather than a start bar or something. So it has to be somewhat unpopular.
Well, it does look nice. That's probably it.
Yes, thanks.
Probably
Ken.
sells computers.
I'll buy you a sticker. I'll print you a little sticker with a dock on it.
Oh, I was so
put it on
jealous
top.
of the documentary people. They had Svelte stickers, and I don't have Svelte stickers.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think I may have some.
We should probably
Well,
consider
you can just print your own. I mean, it's just
merchandising at some point.
the logos online.
I should have
Yeah, but you end up
Svelte
with
tattoos. Here.
Ooh.
oh.
Is
Oh, nice.
this an audio only podcast or is the
Yeah, I'm recording video.
It is, unfortunately.
okay?
audio only.
So I'll have to
no.
describe it for my leaving do from the Times. A friend made these black metal Svelte tattoos, and we all put them on our hands. One guy put it on his forehead because he's like that.
Why not?
Yeah,
Of course you would.
to walk around with it for the next few days.
If you don't go to the watch party covered in those, I'll be disappointed.
I guess my
Shawn.
turn. So I don't know how popular or unpopular this is, but I have read a bunch of things online where they say that you should not put anything or too much in pre-commit hooks. And pre-commit hooks, for those who don't know, are basically when you check anything or you commit, like git commit something like a file, it runs some code, for example, like linting or testing, to make sure that every commit going into the library or the Git history is valid. You're not allowed to check in invalid code. And I struggled with that for a while. I tried it out because one of the things that I always forget to do is I forget to run run linting and Prettier, right? Prettier is fine because it never blocks, but linting is a pain. And then I don't run a test suite, but I could, and it's a form of linting or testing. And I struggled with this recently, especially this week, where I lost an hour trying to commit to Git because I couldn't get my my linting correct. And at the end of the day, the only way I could do it was I disabled ESLint and I committed it. And I just got it up there. And I said, do not merge this until I fix the linting thing. But it was so annoying and it was so productivity destroying. And I think it was good for me because I struggled with it now rather than later.
So you couldn't commit because your lint wouldn't pass, so you couldn't push. Is that correct?
And I was trying to be done with my day. It was like at 6 p.m. I was like, shit, like, you know, I wanna leave and go do my own personal stuff. So I was frustrated that whole hour. I was just like, oh my God, this linting and TypeScript combination doesn't work. I was doing a mono repo setup, all the sorts of complexities, right? And I was complaining in my company Slack. I was like, why do we have this stupid pre-commit hook? Who did it? And a coworker reminded me that I put it in. I really had that classic like Git blame. Who is this? You.
Hang on a minute. I thought your unpopular opinion was the hooks are good, but you've just spent 5 minutes explaining why they're terrible.
Saying they're bad.
The experience was terrible, but I think it's the right move for the long-term health of the project.
I mean, I would agree with that. My beef with pre-commit hooks is that you can't check in the hooks themselves. I mean, you can. There's like ways to do it, but like they're in the .git folder, which means they're not part of the repo. And I've never understood why that's the case. Yeah. Can someone explain it to me like I'm 5?
I think it's just Git. I think it's a belief of Linus that, you know, pre-commit hooks are a personal thing rather than a team thing. Something. Well, I mean,
the standard way
lines.
to do it in JavaScript is using Husky, which does commit it. Yeah, so
that's what I
that just moves it out into a separate folder that you can check in.
Yeah,
but that's like a whole new moving part.
But it is. But actually, it kind of gets out of the way. Husky. I was resistant to installing it, but I also use it for linting and everything, and it's really good because just make sure you always run lint, and I don't get broken builds on CI. But Shawn, are you using Husky then? Did you say
the new one, not the?
You could just do dash
yes,
no dash verify.
You can
skip the hook.
That just kicks the can down the road. And imagine if you merge
the point, right?
Imagine if you merge that in. The next guy coming along trying to run their linting is going to have their day ruined for something that's not their fault.
Right. So basically, you wanted to disable it so that it was disabled within the PR.
I think so. I reserve the right to change my mind.
Okay.
Because like there's a real sense of lost productivity that just came out of nowhere just because like I'm just trying to git commit, like this should be a modular Unix philosophy, small contained thing. And suddenly I'm running my entire test suite or my linting suite. And maybe that's not his job. So I don't know.
Fair enough.
Cool. All right. I don't have an unpopular opinion. Rich, do you have one?
I do. There are too many programming podcasts.
Oh no!
Not
enough salt ones. Not enough salt ones.
I thought I was really may as well lean into the unpopular aspect of this. Present company excluded, of course. I will always listen to anything that has Kevin's ASMR voice. But but in general, like I'm scrolling through Twitter and like everyone's been on this podcast and that podcast, and like I am never going to be able to listen to a fraction of these. I am actually kind of bewildered by just how many podcasts there are. They're all sponsored. It's bewildering to me. So my unpopular opinion is that there's just too damn many programming podcasts.
I'll tell you one thing that I'm being pushed to do now, me and my CEO, in fact, my co-founder, more podcasts or appear on other podcasts because of two reasons. One, it's good to be seen as a thought influencer in terms of funding circles. And the other one is because backlinks that you'll get from a podcast to your website are very powerful, especially if the site is well respected, the podcast is well respected. So actually, there may be a reason why people just try and get on every podcast possible.
No, he's talking about hosting.
I'm not talking so much about.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's like the number of podcasts to go on rather than like the going on the podcasts. Like I would be deeply hypocritical.
Right.
Otherwise, because like, I've been on more than my fair share of podcasts. God knows why. Like I don't know, I don't know why I get invited on these things because I just say the same things every time. But the fact that there are so many podcasts to go on is I don't know. I'm just confused by it.
It kind of exploded.
Yeah.
The whole podcasting scene probably. It's probably not just programming podcasts, right? It's probably podcasts of every genre.
But it's kind of gone in waves, hasn't it? Because podcasts were really popular like tens of years ago when they first came out. I can't remember how you subscribed to them or whatever then back then. I thought that's interesting and then ignored it. And then probably like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, suddenly there's a massive explosion again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The resurgence was actually also because of the New York Times, I think, or maybe NPR, because of Serial.
Oh, really?
And people trace that to the modern resurgence of podcasts. As someone who's recently started one, I could.
It's called Unpopular, Shawn. It's called Unpopular.
Kind of. It basically unintentionally started because I had a chat with Sunil Pai scheduled. We were just catching up over COVID, and he was like, "Why not record this?" And I said, yeah, sure. And I released it on YouTube and it went over really well. So I'm just going to carry on with it. It's a really nice way to get long form conversations about tech, which like, imagine if you're working in like, a medium sized company, everyone's kind of heads down on tech stuff. You don't have any social friends to talk about programming with. This is a way to plug into that center circle of technology where like, people making the thing that you never get a chance to talk to, you get to hear from them. I can see that as a very strongly appealing thing. I've been in a situation before where I didn't know anyone, and this was the only way to get to know people. And so any port in a storm, and I think podcasts enable the human side of technology. So that's my
I
pitch.
listened to that conversation and I did enjoy it. I will always enjoy listening to the conversations that are happening like between people that I know particularly, or like people in the industry that I look up to. And so I do appreciate that podcasting has made those conversations so much more accessible.
Yeah.
Rich, who in the industry do you look up to? That's an interesting point. No, I'm genuinely interested.
Wow. Oh God, I kind of don't want to start listing names because I'm gonna
non-exhaustive. No particular order. I think to get in your head.
Someone I
think some of the people that I'm most interested in hearing from are the people who have opinions that I often don't agree with. Like Brian LaRue is a good example of someone who like I frequently like disagree with him, but he's so experienced and so articulate about his opinions that I find him like an interesting source. Although I don't know if he does a whole lot of podcasting, but I think that to me is the value of the medium, is that when you're listening to someone talk over a period of time about their opinions, it's much easier to sort of get into the nuance than when you're consuming via blog posts and tweets and things, which are so sort of edited down that all of the good stuff is squeezed out of them.
Yeah, I particularly like the longer format of podcasts. Like, I don't know, the Lex Friedman podcast is pretty good. It's like 2-3 hour episodes with just interesting people.
Yeah, something I really have come to subscribe to is that there is too much content online, but people hunger for quality, and they will sit down and listen to a 3-hour podcast if it's good. And you have to capture their attention, and you have to make sure that you're authentically exploring something that's genuinely interesting to you and to the audience. And a lot of podcasters, a lot of content creators, they start out just kind of doing more of the same, and sometimes that just doesn't make a dent. So I really like I forget who I'm quoting, but the guy who pointed this out was like, yeah, like people will sit down and read like a 17-page article or blog post on Elon Musk written by Wait But Why, and that's just because he's very good at explaining things. And but they don't have time for your 3-paragraph blog post because it didn't make a point. So I don't know. There's a very high peak and a long tail.
All right. Picks. I'll go first since I didn't have an opinion. So the new MacBook Pros, they're amazing.
Did you? How long have you had one?
So I got mine, I think, last Friday. Last week.
Ooh, Antony's showing his
nice.
unpacked, or not unpacked, still in the box.
Or is that the wipes?
Still in the box.
No, it's staying unpacked.
Yeah.
It's
Why?
in the box. It's staying there. It's not for me. It's for an employee.
You should get one yourself.
I really want M1, but I need Linux to work on it first.
That's true.
Like fully reusable.
Well, it's very nice. Instead of like heating up and sounding like a jet turbine, it's actually quiet. I'm actually doing this now, and it's quiet. If I use my like 2019 16-inch one, it would just like it would heat up the room. It would all sorts of terrible stuff. So it's very nice. I can definitely recommend it. They're expensive though, which kind of sucks. But I think it's worth it for like the productivity gain.
Rich, do you have one? I guess you're getting one.
Yeah. So the way that Vercel works is they don't give you a company laptop. They have like a gear allowance.
Budget.
And you're expected to choose your own laptop. And I went for the M1 Max, 16-inch. Should arrive at the end of this month. I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
Exciting.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna like it.
I started my job in February, so I have like just about the the last one before the MagSafe, before the physical button keys, before the better processor. But our CTO at our last all hands just mentioned that no one buy anything. We're working on a policy, and I think we're gonna do what Shopify did, which Shopify bought every engineer a new Mac. Because the calculated gains, like you spend, a couple thousands on a new machine, but you hopefully gain in productivity. And for people doing like really compute intensive stuff, I think it matters a lot. Also matters for morale.
I don't know if you saw Jared Palmer did a calculator for like how quickly you will recoup the cost of a new laptop.
He did a calculator.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I read this one.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of like the thing that you can get a top line spec into 14-inch. You can really do that before. So if you like a smaller form factor, that's easier to carry around. You can still get like that powerhouse of a machine.
Yeah, we got funding just before the new Macs came out, so I ordered M1s for everybody. So about 20 M1s, a bunch of Airs for like businessy type people, and a bunch of the Pros for developers, just because they have different requirements. I mean, I'm not a Mac user myself, but I can probably have a fairly good stab at fixing some problem on a Mac, whereas on Windows I just couldn't. So I would love to give a budget people and say buy your own stuff, but I'm a bit fearful of maybe having to debug things on platforms I don't really know.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, next up, Antony, what's this?
Right, so this is like a pick and a controversial opinion because it's about cryptocurrency, and I know we have two people who will vehemently disagree with me on this sort of stuff. But if at February 2019 you had more than I think it's 14 followers on GitHub, at the time when they launched this, you were due about $4,000 worth of $4,000 worth of Handshake token. It's now currently sitting at about $2,000 worth, I think, of this podcast time. But basically, you sign a payload with your private key. You put your public key. You'll get public key. It notices you had these followers at that time, and then it grants you the tokens to your wallet. So you just basically get $2,000 for free, which I think is all right.
What world are we living in? What is this?
What world
can
are we
I
living
take
in?
that $2,000 and spend it on something that I want?
Yeah, you can just swap it for dollars if you want.
The actual only
I think Rich is about to do this for the first time.
Yeah. Rich is going to do it. He's going to do it. I'm going to steal some cryptocurrency.
all of these things that I've seen in the past, like, you get some free crypto, then what?
Well, it's not real unless it changes hands.
It's all
so
yeah.
And it changes hands. So that's the point he's making.
Well, the one thing about this token is you can use an exchange wallet as your airdrop location. So it goes straight into an exchange. You immediately click trade it all for dollars, and take it out as cash into your bank account. So it's pretty straightforward if you just want the money.
Is Rich about to get into crypto?
Rich is like, we can see his decision face now. How many
trees do you burn when you do this?
Well, so I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think Handshake is one of these ones that's not proof of work. I think it's a proof of stake, but I could be wrong on that. I just remember reading about it. I'm obviously like, I'm pretty like anti-tree burning and stuff, but I'm also pretty pro cryptocurrency, so I will fully admit to owning a lot of tokens
from
that
the
are
Handshake
proof of work.
FAQ page.
And I just hope
does this promote carbon emissions? Handshake uses proof of work mining as it is currently the most reliable way to do compact light client proofs. So yes, I will not be claiming my $2,000 of Monopoly money.
Well,
too many trees burned.
Just the evidence of proof of work doesn't mean that it's super inefficient. There are probably more efficient ways to do it than Bitcoin does, but that's a different discussion.
But the point is the proof of. Let's not do this, please.
Anyway, so free currency if you don't mind the end of the planet. Moving on. So this is a project on Hacker News that I found. I'm not a big font guy. I don't like fancy ligatures. I just go with like whatever Westboss set up when I was learning to code. And that's been my setups ever since then. And so I've never figured myself for a font guy until I came across this project, codingfont.com. And it basically just gives you like a hot or not, like a mashup between like 30 something different fonts. And you just choose left, right until you pick the top one. And mine was Azure Pro, which I never thought I had an opinion on. So it's a nice way to discover a new font that you may really enjoy.
Cool.
Nice little pick there.
All right.
I mean, it showed me fire a code straight away, and I blooming love that font. So that was it. That was easy. No
I actually like these little utilities. They're very self-contained, and you discover something about yourself.
All right. Last pick. Do you have one, Rich?
Soup.
What kind of soup?
Just like soup in general.
To eat?
Because, working from home, making food a lot more, particularly now that it's fall. I've just recently got on the soup train because it's so easy to make like a good batch of soup, and it's something that's like, it tastes great, it's very nutritious, and you get like multiple meals out of it, and it's really easy to make the soup as well if you have like the immersion blender or whatever.
What is this? I'm sorry. What is an immersion blender?
It's the one where it's it's a handheld thing. Like, so you'll have like your Dutch oven or whatever with all of your ingredients, and then you put that in and like whisk it around sort of, and then it blends everything in the pot rather than you having to take the ingredients and put them in a blender, which never works because like you've got more ingredients than will fit in the blender, and it just makes a huge mess, and you've got all of this stuff to clean. The immersion blender is much more convenient.
You're immersing in a pot.
It's like a blender on a stick.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like food picks. I'm the only one that pick food until now. That's nice.
Yeah, I like a food pick.
I think that's it. Any last thoughts or other things to say?
Go team.
All right.
I mean,
Cool.
I feel like we're all slowly being dragged into the Svelte universe. Like even Rich going full time. Kevin is kind of full time now. Antony has always been building with Svelte, and I didn't have a Svelte project until I got to my current company, and we decided on Svelte for our app. And I think it's just interesting to see the adoption. I think if you go back like a year in this podcast archives, maybe like there'll be a huge contrast that you don't see day to day, but in the course of a year, it's a lot of movement.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Rich.
Thanks for having me.
We always enjoy your company. And see you all at Svelte Summit, I guess.
See you there.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you then.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.